I'm gonna try to get through this episode. I am surrounded by mosquitoes and bugs that want to chunk out of me, so we'll try and swat them away. That's why I'm swatting if you see me swatting. But here's today's episode while I enjoy the company of these bugs. Oh, shucks. We love stories about grit, don't we? Those late nights, the blisters, the comeback montage with swelling music. It's a myth that builds 1,000 locker room speeches and graduation podiums, and it usually says this: if you keep pushing, the walls will crack. And sometimes this is beautifully true, but other times, though, the wall is not supposed to crack. See, sometimes the wall is actually there to tell you that you're really leaning on the wrong building. And what no one really tells you about perseverance is that oftentimes it's context dependent. Grit can be like a scalpel when you're cutting toward life, but it can also be like a shackle when you're carving away your own life. The same determination that helps one finish the marathon can convince another to keep running in circles on a track that is really going nowhere, because turning off of that track would feel like failure. And for a lot of young men, failure has been framed as the one thing that you must never be, right? From boyhood, I think we're handed the script. Don't quit, don't flinch, don't fold, finish what you start. Even if what you started, even what you started is no longer really who you are. That script builds discipline, and discipline, yes, is good, but when the script gets louder than your inner truth, discipline starts to look a lot like self-betrayal. And you stop asking the most important question, which is the thing that I'm suffering for still worthy of me? I think there are seasons when perseverance is exactly what integrity would require. This is where you keep showing up to, say, your apprenticeship, because the craft matters more than the boredom of repetition. This is where you stay in therapy, right? Even when it's awkward, because you've come to know that healing is slow. This is where you invest time in a friendship, perhaps, that's gone quiet, because history matters. And humility says, reach out first. That kind of grit is aligned, I would say. It keeps you faithful to your values when your feelings feel wobbly. Then there are those seasons, though, when perseverance is really a costume that fear wears. You stay in a job, for example, that's hollowing you out because you're terrified of starting over again. Or you keep chasing the approval of someone who only loves the compliant version of you, because you're really scared to lose the counterfeit closeness that you've built with them. Or you keep working on it with a habit that clearly owns you, because naming the addiction out loud sounds like weakness. And from the outside, it all looks admirable, right? It looks resolved. And on the inside, however, it's stagnation that has a good PR, really. And these traps are subtle. I would say there's the sunk cost seduction, if you will, where you've already spent years in this space, and leaving the past would make all this feel wasted. And so you keep paying in a currency that now is your peace. Or the identity handcuff, where you've always been the reliable one, the grinder, the one who never gives up. And pivoting from this feels like betrayal to the persona that's finally earned you praise. Or there's the loyalty distortion, where you're confusing faithfulness to people or paths with faithlessness to yourself. And so you make martyrdom sound noble and call that love. But here's a reframe that saved me on more than one occasion. Perseverance is only virtuous when it serves your highest commitments. If your perseverance forces you to lie about what is true, or to abandon what's sacred, or to shrink so that someone else can feel bigger, that's not perseverance anymore. I would say that's now turned into a cage. And the test is not, can I keep going? I mean, you're strong. Of course you can keep going, right? The real test, I think, is, what does continuing in this course create? If continuing creates more alignment between your values and your actions, then keep going. If continuing, though, builds more resentment and more numbness and more distance from the people that you're supposed to love, then I'd say stop calling it grit. Call it what it is, avoidance with a halo. See, a lot of young men tell me about this very edge. They're afraid to move because they've equated changing course with quitting. But there's a very different definition, I think, that belongs on our wall, and that is quitting what is diminishing you is not quitting. It's recommitting your life, recommitting to your life. It's choosing stewardship over stubbornness. It's saying the version of me that started this couldn't really know everything I now know, and I want to honor that individual by adjusting and not by freezing. Here's some clarifying questions that you could ask yourself. If I already were not here, would I still choose this today? If the answer is no, I think you've located momentum that's masquerading as meaning, right? Or what's the honest cost of staying one more year in this? List these costs. Is it your energy, health, relationships, your spiritual vitality? Don't let the vague dread hide the bill for this, okay? Or what am I afraid will be true if I walk away? I mean, that story, whether it says I'm flaky, I'm not a real man, people will think that I couldn't really hack it. That's the actual prison. So challenge that story and then the door will appear. Perseverance is a gift when it keeps you tethered to the hard things that help you grow. But it's a problem when it keeps you handcuffed to the old things that really own you. And the most brave move that you could do is not always to push harder. Sometimes the most courageous move is to tell the truth, reroute, and carry your strength into a path that deserves it. One of the most dangerous lies is that perseverance can tell us is that suffering equals progress. See, if you're hurting or straining or exhausted, then you must be on the right path, right? That's a story that I think that we're sold in sports and in business and in life, where it says no pain, no gain, right? But sometimes pain is just pain, and sometimes it's not even a teacher, it's just a warning. So when grit becomes your default, it's easy to mistake any discomfort for a test that you're supposed to pass. The late night jobs at a position that's bleeding you dry, right? This is what it takes, you say, right? Or the endless compromises in a relationship that leaves you feeling hollow. This is what commitment looks like, isn't it? Is what we say then. Or the projects that keep you saying yes, even though you have not, it doesn't really have anything to do with your deeper calling. This is how I pay my dues, is how some people explain this away. Young men are especially vulnerable to this trap because we've been trained to equate endurance with worth. We inherit this myth of the warrior who never retreats, right? The provider who never rests, the competitor who pushes until something breaks. But what if the thing that you're doing is breaking you? There's a fine line between training your resilience and destroying your reserves. Resilience is like a muscle. It grows when you challenge it and also give it rest. But if you're endlessly loading it without any recovery, it doesn't get stronger. It rips, it tears. And unlike muscle fibers, that this one here tears your integrity, and your mental health doesn't just repair because you toughed it out. The danger is that noble suffering gets applause. People will call you dedicated, driven, even heroic, right? They'll admire the grind without asking whether the grind is grinding you down. And because the praise feels good, you keep going. You keep doubling down on a life that's not really actually feeding you. This is where integrity and intimacy come back into play. Integrity means that your actions match your values, not your fear of being seen as weak. And intimacy means that you're letting the people you trust see the truth, not the curated version of you who's handling it just fine. If you can't tell the truth about the cost of your grit, then you're not really persevering anymore. You're just hiding behind it. And the pivot begins with reframing what strength really means. Strength is not it's not really clinging to a burning rope because you're afraid of the fall. Strength, I think, is knowing when the fire will take more from you than the landing ever could. Sometimes the hardest situations to leave aren't really the toxic ones that are obvious. They're the ones that are actually fine. Not amazing, not life-giving, not even aligned, just fine. You're not in danger, you're not miserable every day. You can list a dozen reasons to stay. Other people might even envy your stability. But deep down, you know that there's a cost to this holding pattern that's not really leading you anywhere that you want to go. This is where loyalty can become most deceptive. You've been loyal to a boss, for example, who once mentored you, so you really don't want to abandon them, even though your role has now turned more stagnant. Or you've been loyal to a partner who stood by you in the hard times, and so you feel like leaving would be a betrayal, even if the relationship feels a lot more like obligation than connection now. Or you've been loyal to an identity that you've built through sweat and sacrifice, and so you can't really imagine admitting that it no longer fits. See, loyalty is a virtue when it's mutual, when both sides are growing and honoring the bond. But loyalty becomes a cage when it requires you to shrink or silence yourself to keep the peace. And the danger is the people or the roles that you're loyal to may not even, you may not even realize that you've been paying a price. You know that you're just still there, still delivering and still reliable. And for young men especially, like the pressure to man up and stink it out can make walking away feel like some kind of moral failure. We're told that real men don't cut and run, and that perseverance is proof of character, right? But character isn't proven by how long you can actually tolerate a slow death of your spirit. It's really proven by whether you can tell the truth about what's dying. And the shift from stagnation to growth, it often starts with one uncomfortable admission, and that is, this is no longer mine to carry. It doesn't mean that the history didn't matter. It means that the season has just ended. And ending well is its own form of integrity. In intimacy, I think this matters even more. If you keep showing up as half-engaged version of yourself, you're not really persevering the relationship anymore. You're eroding it quietly from within. The people that you care about really deserve the real you, not this dutiful shell who's only there because he's afraid to be somewhere else. So here's a litmus test that might be helpful. Does your presence still feel like a choice, or has it become default? If it's the latter, I would say your grit has hardened into a wall that's really keeping you from the life that could be waiting for you beyond this wall. When grit has been your guiding principle for years, letting go can actually feel like you're erasing yourself. You've worn the persevering one as this badge of honor, and now you're questioning whether that badge is still worth wearing, right? It's disorienting. It's like asking a marathoner to stop running halfway through the race, just and then to admit that finishing isn't really the goal anymore. But here's the truth. Finishing the wrong race does not make you strong. It makes you lost. And the longer you run it, the harder it becomes to actually admit that you're on the wrong path. And the way out, it begins with permission. Permission to tell the truth about what's really happening. permission to say enough without needing anyone else to agree first, permission to grieve the time and energy that you've invested without letting that grief chain you to the same path. Here are some steps that might be helpful. Number one, name your reality. Write it down in unflinching detail. What staying costs you. Like, be specific. Is it costing you your sleep, your creativity, your physical health, your emotional connection, your spiritual vitality? And when you see that bill in black, it's harder to keep paying it. Step two, separate loyalty from self-abandonment. Ask yourself, am I honoring my commitments or am I disappearing inside of them? True loyalty does not require you to erase yourself. It thrives when both sides are alive and growing. And then three, redefine what quitting looks like. We've been taught that quitting equals failure. But sometimes quitting is really an act of stewardship. It's choosing not to waste your best energy on what no longer serves the life that you're building. So leaving the wrong thing is often the most courageous way to say yes to the right one, right? 4, build a transition plan. Walking away does not have to mean that you're burning everything down overnight. Sometimes you actually just need a bridge, a way to pivot while you're still honoring your current responsibilities. So map out your exit with both courage and care. And then fifthly, involve trusted voices. Talk to the people who have no stake in whether you stay or go, but who genuinely care about you. And then let them reflect back what they see. See, often others can spot the difference between perseverance and stagnation a lot sooner than we can. And here's where intimacy comes back as an anchor. If you've been hiding your struggle behind, I'm fine, let someone see the cracks. Let them witness the uncertainty, the grief, the hope. See, the act of being known in that vulnerable place can really give you the courage to take that step that you've been avoiding all this time. Now, you may worry that leaving will erase the meaning of what you've actually done or accomplished. But meaning is not erased by endings. It's just preserved by honesty. Everything that you've learned, every ounce of strength that you've built, it actually comes along with you. And this chapter is closing, but your character still remains wiser and more alive than before. Perseverance at its best is really a tool for building a life of integrity and intimacy. And at its worst, it's like a cage that we lock ourselves into because we've confused suffering with strength. The courage is in knowing the difference between those two. And when you find yourself in that cage, the door will not open by pushing harder. It'll open by turning the key that you've been holding this whole time. And that's the choice to walk into a life that deserves your grit. I hope this episode has served you well. I'd love to hear how it landed for you. Thanks for watching all the way through. I'm going to vacate this space, this beautiful space, because the bugs are still after me. See you soon.